While Donald Trump stood before reporters claiming that Iran had effectively backed down, events unfolding thousands of miles away suggested a completely different reality. Inside Tehran, senior officials were speaking with a tone that sounded nothing like defeat. Curious. Statements released by government leaders carried a clear message. The conflict was far from over, and the confrontation with the United States was entering a new phase rather than ending. From the Foreign Ministry to the National Security Council and the Presidential Office, the language coming from Iran's leadership sounded unified. Instead of acknowledging surrender, they framed recent events as the beginning of a larger struggle. Exhales sharply. Their message was direct. They had not stepped away from the fight, and retaliation remained on the table after the killing of their supreme leader. Warnings were repeated that American troops, warships, and regional bases would continue to be targets in the eyes of Tehran. Two dramatically different stories are now circulating around the world. In Washington, the narrative suggests that pressure and military action forced Iran to step back. In Tehran, the narrative insists that the nation is standing firm and preparing for the next move. Both sides are presenting their version of victory to their populations, even as tensions continue to rise. The dangerous question is whether either side truly believes the other has stepped back. History shows that wars often begin not only through aggression, but through misunderstanding and miscalculation. When political messaging, national pride, and military decisions collide, small events can quickly spiral into something much larger. Right now, the region is already showing signs of that escalation. Energy infrastructure has been struck, fires have erupted at critical facilities, and civilian areas have not been spared. Reports describe a damaged desalination plant and the tragic loss of children after a school bombing. Meanwhile, global attention is turning toward the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply normally passes, where shipping activity is slowing and fears of a blockade are growing. What we are witnessing is not simply another headline in Middle Eastern politics. It is a volatile moment where rhetoric, retaliation, and uncertainty are colliding. And when competing narratives of victory meet real-world escalation, the risk is that the situation no longer moves according to anyone's plan. And nobody in Washington appears to have planned for any of it. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what Iran's leadership is actually saying, why Trump's "they surrendered" narrative is crumbling in real time, and why the geopolitical world you are living in today looks nothing like the one you woke up in a week ago. Now imagine this. You have a neighbor, a powerful neighbor. One day, that neighbor kicks down your front door, destroys half your house, and then stands on your lawn, telling the entire neighborhood that you have surrendered. Meanwhile, you are standing in the doorway, bloodied, furious, very much not surrendering, and telling every other household on the block that if they let that guy use their driveway to come at you again, they are next. How long before the whole street turns into a war zone? Hold that thought, because that is exactly what is playing out between Washington and throne right now. Drop your answer in the comments. Is Trump's surrender claim strategy delusion, or the most dangerous kind of both? Let us rewind the clock. The Trump administration launched a massive military assault on Iran. The stated goal was decapitation. Kill the Ayatollah, eliminate the top commanders, break the command structure so completely that the country would collapse from within. It was supposed to be fast, overwhelming, and decisive. The core assumption, and this is critical, was that once the leadership was gone, the whole system would fold. The Iranian people would rise up. The government would disintegrate. Trump would stand in front of cameras and declare, "Mission accomplished." That is not what happened. Not even close. The Ayatollah was killed. Yes, Iran suffered enormous damage, but the administrative structure held. The military chain of command adapted. The political leadership survived and immediately began doing the one thing Washington apparently never gamed out: fighting back. Not just militarily, but diplomatically, rhetorically, and strategically across every front simultaneously. Iran's national security leader, Ali Khamenei, said it plainly. Trump got a taste of Venezuela and thought he could do it again. Now he is stuck. We are not letting him go. So, let me show you 3 receipts, 3 moves that tell you everything about where this crisis actually stands versus where Trump says it stands. Receipt number 1, the diplomatic counterpunch. Iran's president put out a statement directed not at the United States, but at every nation in the Middle East. The message was precise. If you are a country in this region and you stop allowing the United States to use your air bases to strike Iran, we will stop attacking you. We have no desire to wage war across the Middle East. Iran specifically appeared to address Turkey and Azerbaijan, offering what amounted to an apology for strikes that hit their territory, while making clear that any nation hosting American operations would remain a target. And then the president of Iran added one final line: "Let us be clear, we reject even the thought of a surrender to the United States." Trump's response: he said, "See, they have surrendered." Then he was asked what he meant and said, "They need to cry, uncle." Iran explicitly rejected surrender. Trump called it proof of surrender. This is not spin. This is the actual sequence of events. And it tells you something deeply troubling about how this administration is interpreting signals from the battlefield. Foreign Minister Iraqi then issued his own statement. He said the president's openness to de-escalation was almost immediately killed by Trump's misinterpretation of our capabilities, determination, and intent. If Mr. Trump seeks escalation, it is precisely what our powerful armed forces have long been prepared for. Washington was not listening, and that silence is deafening. Receipt number 2, the infrastructure escalation. After Iran extended that olive branch to its neighbors, the Trump administration did not pause. It escalated hard. The United States and Israel began striking major Tehran oil refineries that supplied more than 50% of Iran's domestic energy. Footage from the Shahan oil depot showed an inferno that looked like something out of an apocalypse film. Oil spilling from the depot met the city's sewage system, creating a literal burning river flowing through the streets. The U.S. also struck a freshwater desalination plant on Keshem Island, cutting water supply to 30 villages. Iraqi called it a blatant and desperate crime and warned that the U.S. had set a precedent with grave consequences. And then there is the school. An elementary school in Mashhad was hit by the United States, killing approximately 150 children. Satellite imagery and intelligence briefings to Congress all point to the same conclusion. The Trump administration has not meaningfully addressed it. When you bomb a nation's water supply, energy grid, and schools, you are not breaking their will. You are forging it into something harder than it was before. That is not strategy. That is the opposite of strategy. Receipt number 3, the Strait of Hormuz crisis. 20% of the world's crude oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Right now, it is effectively closed. Oil tankers are trapped. Insurance companies will not cover passage. Kuwait has shut down production. Qatar has shut down production. And Iran's air defense headquarters issued a statement that should make every naval planner in the Pentagon pay attention. They said they welcome the United States trying to escort oil tankers through the strait, adding that Iranian forces are waiting. Entry may be on the surface, they said, but the end will be at the bottom of the Persian Sea. Trump's answer was to float U.S. naval escorts for the stranded tankers. But even with warships, the shipping companies are refusing. We are not going to die transiting the strait. They said, you can offer us insurance. You can offer us escorts. We are not moving. The global energy choke point that experts warned about for decades is now a lived reality. And the administration that created this crisis apparently never considered it as a possibility. If this story is connecting dots you have not seen assembled anywhere else, you are already ahead of most people watching this unfold. Hit subscribe right now. This is evolving faster than any single outlet can track, and you need to be here when the next piece drops. Now, let me show you the contrast that defines this entire crisis. The Trump administration went into Iran the way it approaches everything: maximum force, maximum volume, minimum planning, decapitate the leadership, declare victory on camera, move to the next news cycle. It is the blunt, clears-throat instrument approach to geopolitics. Shock and awe without a data strategy. And for about 48 hours, it looked like it might work. The Ayatollah was dead. The strikes were overwhelming. Trump was telling the world Iran has been decimated. But here is what the blunt instrument missed entirely. Iran's system was designed for exactly this scenario. Decades of preparation for a decapitation attempt. Distributed command structures, redundant leadership chains, a population that, whatever its grievances with the Islamic Republic, was never going to rally behind the country that just bombed their children's school and set their cities on fire. Larijani went on camera and said, "We will not let him go unpunished. He has martyred our people. More than 1,000 civilians are dead. This is not a simple matter. We will not let it go until we retaliate in kind." And this is where the miscalculation becomes catastrophic. Trump needed a quick knockout. He did not get one. Iran needed time and international sympathy. They are getting both. Every bombed water plant, every burning refinery, every image of dead children is producing the exact opposite of what Washington intended. It is creating unprecedented unity inside Iran. Even Iranians who once protested against the Ayatollah, who wanted reform, who dreamed of a different political system, are now rallying behind the country against Trump and Netanyahu. The blunt instrument did not shatter Iran's resolve. It welded it together. Meanwhile, the individuals who brokered this catastrophe remain staggering in their unsuitability. Steve Witko and Jared Kushner were somehow conducting the high-level mediations that preceded this war. These are the architects of a conflict destroying American standing and American treasure. Let that register. So what does this actually mean for you? If you drive a car, the price at the pump is about to get significantly worse. Crude oil prices are surging. The Strait of Hormuz's closure is not a hypothetical. It is happening now. And Trump's attempt to offset the damage by lifting sanctions on Russian oil, letting Putin flood the market, has not brought prices down. It has enriched Russia's war machine. While costs continue climbing, that Russian oil revenue goes directly into weapons used against Ukraine. The same Ukraine. The United States is now asking for help in shooting down Iranian drones and ballistic missiles. The contradictions are not subtle. If you care about regional stability, the entire Middle East is fracturing. The Iraqi parliament held "Death to America" chants on the floor. The Emir of Qatar told Trump the escalation will have serious repercussions on international security. Dubai and Doha, cities that spent decades building reputations as safe havens for global investment, are watching that reputation disintegrate as Iranian strikes land near both. Every Gulf state that invested in Trump, every deal, every financial arrangement, all of it is worthless now. Trump did to them exactly what he has done to every business partner, every investor, every creditor in his career. He took their money and left them holding the wreckage. Once these nations restructure their security posture around new partners and new assumptions, they do not restructure back just because the politics cool down. The trust follows the new routes, and it does not come home. Let me give you 3 scenarios for where this goes from here. Scenario 1, managed de-escalation. Back-channel diplomacy produces a face-saving arrangement. Iran agrees to stop striking Gulf neighbors. The U.S. quietly scales back strikes on civilian infrastructure. Some kind of ceasefire framework emerges, mediated perhaps by Qatar or Turkey. But even in this best case, the structural damage is permanent. The Strait of Hormuz demonstrated its vulnerability. Gulf states learned they cannot rely on Washington. Supply chains have already begun rerouting. The old architecture does not reassemble just because the shooting stops. Scenario 2, regional realignment. Other Middle Eastern and Global South nations begin building security and economic arrangements that explicitly hedge against the United States. Iran's diplomatic outreach to its neighbors gains traction. Countries that once hosted American bases quietly restrict access. A new regional security framework starts forming, one where Washington is still powerful, but no longer the unquestioned center. The monopoly on influence fractures into something multipolar, messy, and irreversible. Scenario 3, full escalation. This is the one nobody wants to name out loud. Iran makes good on Larijani's promise and retaliates in kind for the Ayatollah's killing. That could mean a strike on American leadership, American assets, or American soil. The U.S. responds with even greater force. The Strait of Hormuz goes from restricted to fully militarized. Oil hits $200 a barrel. Global recession. Sectarian conflicts across Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen that were held together by threads all ignite simultaneously. And a war that was supposed to be fast and decisive becomes the exact quagmire that 18 U.S. intelligence agencies already predicted it would be. Iran's foreign minister made precisely this point. He said Trump's own national intelligence council determined that war in Iran is destined to fail. He said he warned Trump's envoys that war would not improve the bargaining position. Were those warnings conveyed? The relationship between the United States and the Middle East will never look the same after this. Even if Trump leaves office tomorrow, the lesson has been learned by every government watching. You never place your entire strategic future in the hands of one unpredictable actor. Once alternatives are built, once trust is incinerated, once the images of burning schools and rivers of fire are seared into a nation's memory, you do not return to the old normal. Normal left the building a long time ago. You have the Trump regime full of liars, the Netanyahu regime full of liars. The Iran's leadership is facing intense criticism while competing power centers across the region continue pushing their own narratives. Three powerful systems are locked in a cycle of accusation and propaganda, each carrying a history of conflict, influence, and responsibility for deep instability. Every side claims justification, yet the human cost keeps rising as the situation grows more complicated. For decades, the United States often positioned itself as the central force guiding the international response during moments of crisis. It was never perfect, but it maintained a certain level of influence and credibility. Now, many analysts argue that this standing has been severely weakened. The question being debated across political circles is simple but powerful. Did Donald Trump weaken Iran's strategic position, or did his decisions weaken America's credibility across the region? Supporters call the approach a demonstration of strength and decisive leadership. Critics describe it as a costly strategic gamble that may reshape the balance of power for years to come. The debate continues among policymakers, military experts, and citizens who are trying to understand whether the long-term consequences will stabilize the region or deepen the tensions that already exist. Meanwhile, statements coming from Iranian officials are growing more intense. When leaders declare that those responsible will face consequences and promise retaliation, observers are left wondering whether these words are political messaging or signals of actions that could further escalate the conflict. The situation becomes even more sensitive when a country is dealing with the loss of key leadership figures and significant civilian casualties. Many questions remain unanswered. Is the region moving toward deterrence and negotiation, or toward another cycle of confrontation? Could this moment reshape alliances and influence global energy markets? And how will governments explain the unfolding events to their own citizens and to the wider world? These are the issues analysts are watching closely as new developments emerge almost daily. The strategic waterways, the pressure on oil markets, and the internal political responses inside major governments will all play a role in shaping what happens next. What started as a single crisis could quickly expand into a far broader geopolitical struggle. Share your perspective in the comments and join the discussion as this story continues to develop. Stay informed because the next phase, rising regional tension, shifts in global oil prices, and new political briefings about what truly happened on the ground, is unfolding rapidly. This situation is evolving fast, and the world is paying close attention. This content is commentary and analysis created for informational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, legal, or geopolitical advice. Viewers should consult qualified professionals before making decisions based on the events or opinions discussed here.